Good evening, buenas noches, and thank you for tuning in tonight. On behalf of Mitchell Kaplan, the Miami Book Fair, and all of us at Books and Books, I welcome you to our virtual evening with Betsy Carter to discuss her new novel, Lost Souls at the Neptune Inn, published by our friends at Grand Central Publishing. Carter crafts an endearing, sweeping saga of strangers brought together. The story comes alive through the honesty and raw emotion injected into the characters. Her unflinching look at the characters' imperfections and boundless exploration into their minds makes for an exceptional tale, says Publishers Weekly. The daughter of German immigrants, Betsy Carter, is the author of the novels Swim to Me, The Orange Blossom Special, The Puzzle King, and We Were Strangers Once, as well as her best-selling memoir, Nothing to Fall Back On. She is also the creator and editor of New York Woman magazine and has worked at many other magazines, including Newsweek, Harper's, Bazaar, and Esquire. In conversation with Betsy tonight is Jill Bauer. Jill is the director and producer of the documentary Hot Girls Wanted, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2015 and was nominated for an Emmy Award for Exceptional Merit in Documentary Filmmaking. In 2017, Bauer co-created the Netflix anthology series Hot Girls Wanted, Turned On. Bauer also co-directed and produced Sexy Baby. Formerly a writer for the Miami Herald, Jill is a Hearst and SPJ award-winning journalist and has also written for the Dallas Morning News, the New York Times, and launched Smart Kid, a national parenting magazine. Throughout this evening's broadcast, you're invited to ask questions by clicking the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to some of those right after their talk. You can find Lost Souls at the Neptune Inn for purchase at Books and Books below by pressing the green button. Every purchase you make helps keep Books and Books up and running during very difficult times, so please, folks, don't hold back. You need to read this. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest to the stage.
Hello.
There you are. Hi.
Hi, Jill.
Hi, Betsy. Hi, everybody. So, full disclosure, Betsy is my cousin. And when I was growing up, we would sit around the dinner table and talk about Betsy because Betsy was famous. And she was a writer and an editor at a bunch of big time magazines in New York. And one of the magazines that she edited, and she didn't just edit it, but she was the founding editor of, was New York Woman magazine. And so today I did a little bit of digging around, and I found this essay.
Oh my God.
By Betsy called Luck Be a Lady. And I just want to read the first few sentences and then ask Betsy a question. For months before the launch of this magazine, we had breakfast with women, bankers, socialites, celebrities, homemakers, advertising executives, artists, etc. We brought them together over scrambled eggs and croissants and asked them lots of questions about themselves and their perceptions. Again and again, we asked, if you could name one adjective that best describes the New York woman, what would that be? The women were downright macho in their answers. Gutsy, said several. Brave, said several more. And there was a nod of consensus whenever tough or courageous came up. They were right. This is a city of brave women. Not brave by intent, perhaps, but brave by necessity. The design of our lives as women in this city forces us to behave and react in ways that most of us would have found unthinkable as young girls. So, Betsy, a lot of
I see where you're going.
A lot of the, and this was written in, well, you would remember more than me, but it says, I think
it's
anyway,
like
1988,
I think.
Okay. So, so a lot of your book, Lost Souls at the Neptune Inn, is filled with strong women. It's a book that's about motherhood and being a daughter. And but the reason that I thought to read this was because everyone's thinking about RBG. So I can't think of anyone who was more, I guess, kick-ass and more of a feminist and more empowered and a working woman than you, my cousin Betsy. So I don't know, any reflections or anything to say about womanhood and girls and this moment?
Um, I just think we just keep on going as we always have against the worst odds. I thought that where you were going with this question was you were going to ask me the word that describes me or you actually, and a lot of us. And I would say, despite everything, we're eager. We're always eager. We're eager to help. We're eager to keep trying new things. And I think in this moment, we have to maintain our eagerness and our optimism, which I think we have unfailingly, and our determination, which we've also always had unfailingly. I think that's where we are. And can't roll over now. This is the time to really be tough, be brave, be strong, really. Right?
Yeah. I mean, and I remember really watching you during that time. And then, years later, you wrote your memoir, Nothing to Fall Back On. And you really did push back and against all odds. So anyway, that's your fangirl cousin.
Thank you.
Now to Lost Souls. Maybe could you describe it for anybody who hasn't read it, just in sort of a brief?
Yeah, it's a novel that spans a couple of generations. It starts in the 20s and ends up in the 80s. And as you said, it's mother-daughter, but mother-daughter and man-woman. But what it's really about, I think, for me, is the search of home and what people will do, to any extreme, to have home and to have love in their lives. And in this book, people push different boundaries to keep that love alive and to keep that home and to keep that safeness. So it's an intergenerational book, and I think it grows up with the decades. But it's also about these people and what they do to keep love alive and to keep a home and to be in a home and to be part of a family. That's the really short version.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, I was thinking another sort of underlying theme or something that sort of that I noticed is that you tackle a few taboos in the 60s, especially because it primarily takes place in the 60s. And the taboos are divorce, homosexuality, and there's a third. The third is, let's go back to my notes. Sorry. The third, do you know?
I'm trying to think. Third? No, but I while you're thinking about it, I can just say that I think all of us, one of the things I was trying to get at in this book is that all of us have taboos in our lives and all of us have secrets in our lives. And this book deals with both of them because they are a part of life. And they are the part of life that people don't always talk about. And I wanted to get at that a lot.
Yeah, and you did. You really did. I mean, there's so much... There's, but in subtle ways, as you're just a very subtle writer. There's just this acknowledgement, and there is some conversation of the fact that you can intimately know somebody and know nothing about them. Which is nothing. Go ahead.
It's what interests me the most about relationships, because as close as you are, you can never really. Some part of that other person remains impervious, and I find that fascinating and terrifying at the same time, that you never know. You never really, really know.
You never know. Somebody can be having complete inner dialogue with themselves and you have even though you're a very, very good observer, you just can't completely get into somebody's head. And that's another thing that, of course, I wanted to ask you about. Full disclosure, Betsy gave me permission. one of the main characters of the book is a character by the name of Dillard, and he marries another main character in the book, and is closeted for many years, and then comes out. And this is based on Betsy's life, so a part of Betsy's life. So maybe, I don't know how best to ask the question, but
I think you've asked it.
okay.
Dillard, I just want to say right now, Dillard is not based on my ex-husband, who is a lovely man who knows about this book. He looks a little bit like my ex-husband, but that's where the similarity ends, except for one scene. There's a scene in which Dillard makes linguine with clams every Sunday night, and my ex-husband did that. But short of that, the story is not about him, but it is about one of the reasons I did want to write this book. I was married for 17 years and really had a pretty great marriage. And my husband was a lovely man, still is a lovely man. But I didn't see this coming. And in the years since we've been separated or divorced, many years now, I was very, very curious to try to get into the mind of somebody who's gay. And I know that, a lot of people will say, well, you're not gay and you've never been a gay man. How can you write about that? But I feel that I came as close as I could get. And so one of the things I did with Dillard was try to understand who he was. He comes of age in the 60s and the 70s, really. And it was a time when being gay was not something that you admitted to other people, much less yourself. And in Dillard's case, he really tries to keep it at bay until he can't anymore. And so I used that character to explore that kind of what was going on in his mind, and tried my very best to understand that.
And you did a great job of it. I mean, you feel not only his struggle, but obviously his lover's struggle, the man that he has the affair with, and also the women in his life. You definitely feel all of that. And then, by the way, in real life, was your reaction the reaction that you wrote in the book?
Close.
Okay.
I mean, really close. The reaction, the character that he's married to, her name is Amelia May. She's shocked. She feels betrayed, but she also feels a relief for him that he has found what he needs to find. And she tries to imagine, what would it be like to go through your whole life with a secret? And in that way, she has empathy for him. And I have to say, when this happened to me, I felt all of those things. I was horrified and betrayed, but also felt, thank God he gets to go on with his life as he's meant to go on with his life. So it was a mixture of everything.
Yeah. And okay. And then another very big theme is the conflict between mothers and daughters.
Yeah.
So where did that come from? Because you were very close with your mom in real
I know.
life.
And I seem to write a lot of books that have mothers and daughters who don't get along very well. I don't honestly know where that comes from. I think the best I can think of is that I have never had children. And so that I imagine different scenarios in which I might have had a kid. And the scenario that I imagined here was Amelia May is the daughter to a woman named Geraldine. Geraldine is a very beautiful, sexy young woman who really did not want to get pregnant when she got pregnant, but the Times and her husband really wanted her to, and she was afraid not to. And she always resents her daughter, Amelia May, for sort of ruining her looks, ruining her sexuality. And it takes many, many, many years, and I'm not sure she ever really overcomes it. And I think it was just a scenario of mother-daughter that I wanted to play out in my mind, as I said, in several books, I play out mother-daughter relationships. I've always wondered, God, I mean, no one ever talks about having a kid that you resent or that you don't like. And I just wanted to write. I mean, that's my way of trying to understand something, is to write about it. I wondered what that would be like. So that's how that happened.
And describe what Alice, the daughter, is called by her mom. like how she
Oh,
refers
no,
to
Amelia
her.
May. Amelia May
I mean,
is the
Amelia
daughter.
May.
So,
Sorry.
okay, well, this has
Sorry,
an
Alice is the granddaughter. Sorry about
yeah.
that.
Amelia May is Geraldine, the once beautiful person, her daughter. Geraldine is a Catholic. When Amelia May is very young, she has colic. And unbeknownst to her, her husband is feeding the baby, um, I've forgotten what it was, some sort of medicine that turns her tongue black. And
No.
Pepto-Bismol, yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
Geraldine decides that her daughter is the devil's child and has never gotten over the fact that her child is the devil's child. And in some ways, that helps her explain her negative feelings toward her daughter, is that she's got the devil in her. Uh, I will say this comes from an experience in my life when I was going through a lot of really bad things were happening to me, and I was seeing a therapist. And one day I came in and I was really upset, crying. And I said, "My God, my house just burned down." This was after maybe 6 or 7 other really catastrophic things in my life. And this woman looked at me and said, "I want you to consider that you may have been a very bad person in your past life, and I want you to think about getting an exorcism." And that was shocking. And I said, "I'm going to pretend you never said that, and we'll just go on." And of course, I never went back, but I always wanted to write about someone who needed an exorcism. And when I started writing this book, I wrote like 100 pages that started sounding like The Exorcist. And I thought, no, I'm not the person to write this book. And I sort of scaled back and got to the Pepto-Bismol, and that seemed like just enough. So that's the sort of the origin of that. And those were the two things that got me to write this book, were the exorcism and the dealing with what it might be like to be a gay person, gay man.
Now, this is a very good segue to my next question. So I remember we've talked about therapy and about how maybe therapy wasn't great for you, didn't do the trick necessarily. But I feel like writing is your therapy. Am I wrong? Or form of therapy?
It's the place that I go to. Yeah, I think it is. And it's the place. I'm not very good. I mean, in therapy, I would go to if I was seeing a therapist tomorrow, I would say, "I had a really interesting conversation with Jill last night, blah, blah, blah." And I don't really get to the heart of it when I talk. But when I write, it's a safe place, and I can explore. I don't even mean to do it, but I explore things that I never talk about. So, and I always, when I write, I assume no one's going to read it. So I'm pretty safe that way too. I've always kept diaries and journals. So yeah, that is my safe place.
Yeah, as a reader, I feel that. And then, so how do you do that? How do you not think about that this could be found? My diary, my book, my, crappy pages.
When I was very young and I kept a diary, and I was like 13 and 14, I was so worried that my parents would find it. Every now and then I would write in big capital letters, "Oh my God, I think I'm pregnant." And I thought, well, if they found it, they would say something. And obviously they never said anything, so I kept writing. I don't know. I just keep writing, and I just think I'm safe, until I turn this in, nobody will read it. It's a good disconnect.
So now writing process, it seems like you really like writing. So I was thinking about you and writing, and there's that famous Dorothy Parker line, I like having written, right? But I think you might like the process. Do you like the process?
It's a funny process for me because, I'm trained as a journalist. I've been a reporter. I was a reporter at Newsweek for many years. And my background is journalism. And what I like about writing is that I interview my characters. So it's always, I don't speak out loud because that would be just over the border of crazy. But I constantly am saying, "All right, Dillard, she just said this to you. How are you going to answer her?" And it's kind of like an interesting, I get to watch this repartee going back and forth and fill in the blanks where I want to fill in the blanks. And if I don't like, I had in one book, I killed off a character in the middle, I guess, and I missed her. So I went back and brought her to life. And it's one of the things I love about writing. You know, you can really, if you're really unhappy about a dead character, come bring her back, you know. And I like kind of watching the interaction of characters. I like interviewing them. It's really, it's like, it's playful. It's really playful and fun for me.
What are your dreams like?
Oh, you don't want to know. My dreams are bad men chasing me. I fall down a sewer. Nobody helps me. End of dream. That's pretty much it.
Hasn't that stuff happened? No, not yet. Okay.
Not yet, please.
Backstory, everybody. Betsy had a little fire today already. Well, almost fire.
Yeah,
but we're in the clear. So you just made me think of the writing question. So you were a journalist your whole life. Then you wrote the memoir, and then you segued into writing novels. So,
yes.
So did you ever have to teach yourself to do that? How did that happen?
I wrote the memoir, because I had a lot on my mind, and that, as you said, that was a way for me to get rid of a lot of it. But I also wrote the memoir because I always thought I did want to try to write fiction. And I thought, if I didn't write the memoir, there would always be a fire. There would always be some the things that I describe in the memoir. There would always be the strong characters that I describe in the memoir. And I thought, get rid of them in the memoir, and then you can go on and write fiction. And it was a relief to me after writing that memoir to just go off. And my first novel was about a couple I'd met on a bike trip, and I didn't know much about them. And it was just my way to kind of get to know them. And after I wrote the memoir, I thought, I'm never writing about myself again. And I think so far I haven't. It was so revealing and so scary, actually, to put it out there. And it's still scary. Every now and then someone will say, I read your memoir, and I think, oh my God, I'm so sorry I put you through it. So nonfiction, I don't think I'll ever go back to writing about myself. And I feel more comfortable in fiction simply because you can make it up and you can't be wrong unless you're doing historical fiction, and then you better be right.
But how did you learn about structure and all? I mean, because that's very different than I think it's very different than a piece of journalism.
You know, I didn't really. I just started telling a story and started getting to know the characters. I have a very good. My husband's an editor, and he's a wonderful reader, and he reads behind me. And I have a very close friend, Lisa Grunwald, who's a novelist, and she reads behind me. So that's kind of how it went. You know, it's I just wrote the story as I kind of saw it.
And I will say that it's very cool to know you for as long as I've known you and read
Forever.
your books forever, forever, and read your books because, you know, there are little things that pop up that are so familiar to me. And maybe nobody, but maybe a few people would know about those things. But, you know, a dog named Lucy and a birthday on June 9th and, you know, things like that. It's a 47. Oh, by the way, you put 4711 perfume in there.
I did.
You know, my grandmother used to wear that. I don't know.
I think all of our grandmothers wore it.
Okay. I figured that was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was your mom a bookkeeper?
Yes.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just, you know, these things just kind of pop up and I'm like, oh, okay. Let me just look through my,
you know, they always say that writers are vampires. And I mean, the things that pop up there are little, you know me well enough to know they're all through the book. There are things that either people I've met or things that have happened that just show up and you put them in there because you know them.
Yeah. Well, didn't somebody get a rash in the book? I think somebody gets a rash.
I'm sure because I get rashes, so I'm sure they did.
Well, anyway, so of course I laughed out loud because somebody got a rash. And one time Betsy was in town.
I know where this is going.
So Betsy was in town and we were on Key Biscayne and we went into a drugstore and she was looking for cortisone cream or something. And so she went to grab No, I grabbed
You did.
a tube of something and I said, "Oh, this, this is great. I've used it." And I wasn't reading very carefully. So Betsy turns to me and she goes, "Anal itching?" Okay, because it was for anal itching, but I pulled the wrong thing off the shelf.
Right. That
So,
has not been in a book yet, but it will be.
okay, it will be. Okay, good. Now I feel very reassured. So, all right, let me see if I have any more questions. And then is there anything else that you want to say? Wait, do have one more thing to say. Here you go. This is the book. It's really, 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 it's a page turner, like everything that Betsy writes, so easy to read. And you'll just be so immersed with these characters. They're real people. They're not characters.
I hope so.
Let me just see if I have any other questions that I didn't get to. Is there anything else you want to say, Betsy?
Yeah, I have one thing. People ask me a lot about writing and what to do if you want to be a writer. And the only advice I have to say is just keep doing it. It's like being an athlete. You just keep doing it, and every day you do it a little bit, even if it's a couple of sentences a day, and see what you've got. It goes back to your very first question about women. We don't give up. We keep trying and we keep pushing, and same with writing.
When back in the 80s, when you founded where I started, when you founded New York Woman, that was you were really working in a man's world, because the heads of magazines back then were all men, the owners, the editors in chiefs. What was your magic secret? Because you were very beloved.
I don't know if I had a secret. I think it was, I was working at Esquire at the time. You were there. And I realized that what Esquire was doing for men, nobody was doing for women. And I really didn't think about, oh my God, I'm a woman, I'm trying to do this. And I just thought there needs to be this magazine. And I just kind of, when you haven't done something before, like start a magazine or write a novel, you don't know what you can't do. So you do everything. So I just pushed ahead, and the person, Philip Moffat, who owned Esquire at the time, let me go forward with it and gave me the money and the time and the resources to do this magazine. And I never really thought about that bigger question. I just thought about this magazine needs to be out there. And it was, that's all I thought about.
Yeah. I mean, but generally speaking, even before New York Woman and after New York Woman, you just didn't really seem to have issues with, sort of like a fraught environment between, like now we're in Me Too, for example.
Right.
You were able to navigate that with great ease, at least from what I could tell.
But Jill, you are a documentary filmmaker. You're doing what you love. Do you really think about the wider picture of it? Do you think of all the reasons why you shouldn't be doing it? Probably not. You do it because you love it. It's the same thing with me. Everything, I've been very lucky in my career. I've always loved every magazine I've worked at, maybe one I didn't. And I love writing. And, you don't think of all the reasons you shouldn't be doing. You just do it because you love it. And then the rest comes or doesn't come, because of
Touché.
Whatever.
Yeah, yeah. It's good. It's a good answer. So what do you think? Questions?
Sure.
Questions?
Sure.
All right. So I think we have 3 questions. Let's see. Unless they're tests. Let's see. Okay. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
What are your hopes for this book? And what would you want people to get from it?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I hope people read it, for starters. I hope that in this book there's a generosity of spirit, and I think if there was ever a time, right, that we needed a generosity of spirit and just generosity in general, it's right now. And I hope that people take that away from it. That it's okay to be who you are, that it's okay to be empathetic, and that we really, right now, we just really need to be kind to each other, as I hope in the end of this book, people try to be kind to each other. And I think that's the big takeaway. I think also, I hope that people read this and it's a comfort, because I think we all need some comfort right now. And I hope this book is a comfort. I hope it makes them laugh sometimes. And I hope they love the characters as I do.
Okay, I think you answered this next question. So could more have been like a kind of exorcism? An LOL, someone said. So maybe you answered it.
About what about the exorcism?
Could your memoir have been a kind of
could my memoir have been an exorcism? Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And that's a really good question. And yeah, absolutely. When boy, shortly after all of those things happened to me, and the therapist said I needed an exorcism, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I went to see a therapist because, really it was time. And all I kept saying was, I have to have an exorcism. I have to have an exorcism. And she later told me she really didn't know what to do with me, because New York City, I mean, there must have been an exorcist somewhere in New York City, but we never found it. And I think only later, when I wrote that memoir, I was having a lot of PTS stuff and bad dreams and stuff like that. And I think that book, writing that memoir, which was so painful, did the trick. I think it really helped. So yes, I think writing that book was an exorcism.
Next question is about your writing. Do you take a break before you write your next novel, or do you dive right in?
Both. In some cases, I have the book, I had just finished writing We Were Strangers once, but the idea for this book was in my head, and I started this one right away, Lost Souls. After I finished Lost Souls, I have an idea that I have been just sort of poking around at. I can't say that I'm zooming through it, but I have an idea that I'm playing with. So yeah, I guess I go on to the next one.
Okay. Here we go. I loved reading your novel and didn't want to leave the world of your characters. How long did it take to write your book? And when you are writing, what kind of schedule do you keep? Do you write every day?
I write pretty much every day. I usually do something, well, when pools were open in New York City, I'd either swim or do something physical first, because it got off a lot of anxiety and energy. And then I would go plunk myself down in a library in New York City called the New York Society Library. They have a writer's room. And I would be there, I would say 5 to 6 hours a day, and really, I pretty much try to write every day. Yeah.
And I guess now you're writing at home.
I'm writing at home. Yeah.
Nook. Is there a book or / writer that you recall having a big impact on you as a reader?
Oh my God, so many people. Mary Carr, Liars Club, the first book that I ever read when I was very young that really knocked me out, and I understood the power of what writing could do. It's a book by James McPhee, A Death in the Family. I read that, I don't know why, and it just broke my heart. And it was the first time I understood that words and creating characters could move a person as much as they could. So so many writers, Somerset Maugham. I just read Colin McCann's Paragon, which just blew me away. Yeah, there's so many writers.
Okay, let's see. More questions. Okay. Would you pick a passage you love and read it to us?
Well, I would, but I didn't bring. I'm away from my home, and I don't have my book. I'm sorry.
I'll read you a few no one can turn a phrase like Betsy. That's really, so I'll read you a few little lines that I really liked. I really liked, of course, it's wrong to underestimate what the heart can hold. Just really like that line. Anyone looking through the picture window of the Moore home would see that family, a happy and handsome one, the kind that trouble tends to ignore. And then classic Betsy, who talks to the dead, especially the deaf dead. So
That's it. Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
I like that scene. That scene.
Go ahead.
That scene is a character dies, an older woman dies, and our main character, Amelia May, goes to see her, and she's very nervous about looking into an open casket. And the woman who died is a very modest woman, church-going woman. And Amelia May finally looks in and she sees that the woman is wearing a Gucci scarf. And she's kind of blown away by the fact that this very modest, plain woman suddenly is going out in a Gucci scarf. I don't know. Just that was that passage.
Yeah. And the character couldn't hear because she was old.
Right, she was deaf. Yeah.
And then that was so typical of Geraldine, asking a question that begged for the truth but demanded a lie.
That's our mother, the mother who has problems with her daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. We've all encountered that person, right? And that's what I really like about your writing. It's universal. They're very familiar, characters, people. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, this is a question I had. I didn't ask this. Which writers nowadays do you admire? What are you reading at the moment?
I just finished a Paragon. I'm reading Helen McDonnell's essays, and I just finished E.L. Doctorow's World's Fair, which is wonderful, wonderful, evocative novel with the greatest detail. He just gets you into this world and this life, and it's brilliant writing. I recommend it. I recommend it because it's also, in its detail, it's so calming, which if you're up at 2:30 in the morning worried, it's a good thing to read.
Who's worried and up at 2:30 in the morning? Have you written today? Someone wants to know.
No, I'm away. I'm on a little vacation, and I haven't done anything today, much except walk on the beach and avoid a fire in the yard.
Hi, Betsy. Why New Rochelle? I was curious about that too, and I'm curious about how you decided on the setting.
New Rochelle, because I wanted to be out of New York, but close enough. Also New Rochelle because my agent, Victoria Skurnick, is from New Rochelle, and it's close to the city, so she would give me many tours, and I've heard about New Rochelle a lot, and it just seemed the perfect setting for where I wanted to be. And the other place that I chose, it takes place in New Rochelle in a place I call Skyville in North Carolina, which for some reason I had to make up, even though it's very close to Asheville. And it's a place I went to several summers of my life and loved. So those are the two places.
There's another thing this just made me think of the other thing. Music is the through line through this novel also. There are a few musicians in it, and there's a lot of mention of music and anyway, so how did that happen?
Well, the cliche is I love music, but more to the point, I've been taking piano lessons while I started taking piano lessons while I was writing this book, and I'd never done that before. So because I have a wonderful piano teacher, Josh, if you're here, Josh Deutsch, he really made me understand music in a way that I never had. So I started listening to it very differently and absorbed that into the book.
Why a bakery for the women?
I don't know. I just like the smell of it. And I think the first thing that attracted me to the bakery are how they tie the boxes up with those strings that are red and white. I've always liked that. And so I wanted to write about that. I think that's why I got to the bakery.
Let's see. There's not. Do you know what your next book will be about?
Kind of,
She
but
won't
not
tell
really.
you. She
No, I
won't tell you.
But there is a mother in there.
Uh-huh. And a daughter, obviously.
And maybe music. I don't know.
Uh-huh. How do you feel about Bob Dylan in real life?
Not so good. I know that. I have a character in there who really says, I don't like him. And I think Dillard says unkind things about him. And I had somebody early on, one of my editors, say, the only thing I really don't like about this book is what you said about Bob Dylan. But I don't appreciate Bob Dylan. I do appreciate John Prine, but not Bob Dylan.
Well, that's another, I can see you having the conversation between the characters because, you're just debating. You're having a little, inner.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I went through. I think I did. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So wait, so when you're away, you don't write?
I do sometimes, but I haven't. I've just been here for 3 days, so we'll see. Maybe I will.
Oh, I didn't know you were just there for 3 days. Oh, okay. All right. I think I asked all of the questions, and everybody, don't forget. Wait, can you all see this? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. It's like I said, very, very readable. Perfect. It's like the perfect book for right now. It's like so easy to read and escape into. Anything else, Betsy?
No, I'm just glad to be sort of in Miami at Books and Books.
Oh, wait, you just made me. So Betsy, talk about your Miami background.
Well, I grew up in Miami. I went to elementary school, junior high, high school, Miami High Stingarees. And when I go back, I always see Jill, and it's really my home. It always has felt like my home, and I miss it. I miss it. It's funny, we're renting a little house here in Long Island, and in the morning, there's a tree. You can't really see. There's a tree outside the window, and every morning I wake up and I think, oh, it's a palm tree, and it isn't. It never is,
No.
But I wish it were.
I have regards from Chris Wasserstein. Happy anniversary, Betsy and Gary.
Thank you.
29th, you said?
29 years. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. Where is Gary? Isn't there? He's there somewhere?
No, he's tucked away in another room.
You
with
locked
the dog.
him up?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I kind of asked all my questions. Of course, I can ask many, many more, but I think I kind of. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this, Jill. It's always great to see you.
So I see a couple more that snuck in here.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. Do you keep a notepad with you, and do you take notes and observations all the time?
I'm so glad whoever asked that.
That's Robin. Robin has asked
Thank
that.
you, Robin. I have a notebook by my bed. I have a notebook when I go swimming in my swim bag. I have notebooks all over the house. I wake up in the middle of the night. I write myself incomprehensible notes and wake up in the morning and think, who was that? Yes, I take notes all the time. When I'm on the subway, I have a notebook in my purse. Yes, I always do. I love to I love to overhear people's conversations on their cell phones. I write down what they've said. I write down everything that comes into my mind. I'm glad you asked that. And anyone who wants to write, I recommend that highly. Notebook.
Well, New York City is the perfect place to live for, do you
for people watching. For people watching and observing and listening, for sure. So I want to congratulate you, and I want to thank you so much for doing this event with us virtually at Books and Books. You still are at Books and Books, believe it or not.
Thank you. I'm
in this
so happy.
little virtual bookshop that we have built. And I want to thank you both for joining us. Jill, thank you for your great questions.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
I want to ask questions of you also, but we'll do that next time. So everyone at home, please, or wherever you're watching from, please remember you can order the book. It's right down at the green button on the bottom of the screen, and Jill's going to hold it up again so you can see that beautiful cover. Wonderful. And, the blurbs too. Great. Okay. Who blurbed it? Just out of curiosity, because I don't have a...
They just quoted like reviews, various reviews, and some reviews from my last book.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina, for setting this all up.
Stay safe and be well, and we hope to see you in real life very, very soon in Miami.
Yes, I'd love that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.